Hare Krishna Prabhus, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Last March, I had a good friend flew in to drive my husband, well, our family and a family that was at the time living on our farm up to a program about 3 hours north of us. And so it was one of those things. Everybody's getting ready for, making sure there were children involved. So all the things that the kids need, and then, snacks for along the way, and reading books and gifts for the hosts. I mean, all the things that you have to remember at the last moment. So it was that kind of rushing around and trying to get everything organized. And then just as we were almost ready to walk out the door, my friend actually had the door open and he was going out, and I was reaching for something above the refrigerator, and this whole big crash came right down, and I think it was pasta. It was spread all over the place. And I looked at my friend, and I'll just call him Raj, just because it's better to have a name. I haven't asked him for permission to talk about this, but anyway, I looked at him, and he, coming from a Brahmin family and very, very aristocratic person, he kind of went a little bit pale, and we both said at the same time, was that an omen? Because we're about ready to get into a rental car and drive on the I-5 for 3.5 hours to go to a program for Gurpurnim. So we kind of conferred about it, and then just decided, well, we're just going to continue on like we would normally. And then everybody in this big van, and we're driving out the gate, and just as we drive out the gate, Raja says, "Giri Raj ki jai." And then he explained that as a child, when they would leave somewhere, the family made a habit of saying Giri Raj ki jai. In other words, they were making their omen. So if you, on the other hand, you have to be Krishna conscious enough to remember Krishna as you're going through the gate, or making the first step on, or laying the cornerstone. Omens usually occur at times that have more moment to them, that are important. The word portent actually means omen. So when something is important, that's when you notice omens. So along those lines, what do you decide to make important? That is actually kind of like an omen. If you make your sadhana, I mean, I know for myself, it's like I have decided to make my sadhana, especially since this crisis has been on, the most important thing. And having my deities have nice flowers, and being able to do good offerings, and chanting my rounds with as much love and happiness and eagerness as I possibly can put into them. So that's what one type of omen is. I wanted to say something about when, because we are in the middle of a crisis and anything could happen. And I had some realizations when yesterday's video, I explained about the little kind of event that I had, basically running into from a strategic point of view. I ran into an ambush. And I was very pleased that even though I was alert enough to recognize all the makings of it, this was indeed an ambush situation. Even though I knew that, somehow I was fortunate enough not to be afraid, because Krishna allowed me to think of his feet at that time. I actually thought of his feet before I got out of the car, and I had this level of confidence that, oh, well, Krishna let me think of his feet. How could anything untoward happen? And sure enough, it was a non-event, even though I was aware that it had all the elements of a setup for an ambush. So one devotee commented that if I'm not afraid, why do I have a gun? That would be similar to, the Kshatriyas not having a sword. They're in a situation where they're going to be called on to possibly use some violence. And the reality, the way the world's going, people's psyches are going to be shattered what's happened is that people, they're living in this fantasy world where they think food comes from grocery stores and that the government cares and that the healthcare industry actually cares about your health. I mean, that this is a fantasy and it's going to be shattered. And you know, one way you can kind of look at it is if you're, let's say your psyche is actually your connection to the real world, which we'd say is the akasha, you know, things that actually happened. And if you make a fantasy about things, like you're not willing to consider the possibility that either Trump is good or bad, because people have it, they seem to like either one. You know, people aren't able to just realize, well, he's a conditioned spirit soul and he's playing a role, you know, and let it go at that. But, you know, people tend to, oh, he's going to save us or he's going to kill us, you know, one or the other. So either one of those that you have, you won't be able to hear any information. Well, they describe it as being like one of those black monoliths. It's like you can't see through it and it's just black. And what's on the other side is the truth. You know, and like I said about Trump, well, the truth is we know he's a conditioned soul because we know the highest level of knowledge. So it's easy for us to see what the truth is. And we shouldn't have, if we've been following Srila Prabhupada, we shouldn't have any of these monoliths. You know, after chanting for decades, we should be able to just see reality. And yet I'm seeing people are not seeing reality. Reality is the signs are there. The omens are there. People going around wearing masks. I mean, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is. Because imagine if the media had not made a big propaganda thing about, you know, you have to wear a mask because to protect your grandmother. So if you don't wear a mask, it means you don't love your grandmother and she's going to die. I mean, that's basically the psychology that they're putting out there. But that's so laughable because there's definitely a lot of information that rebreathing stale air is not very healthy. It's just common sense, because I know myself when I have never worn a mask for the mandate, but I have occasionally worn a dust mask and it's not comfortable. You don't want to do it for very long. Hey, I mean, that's one of those common sense things. So if the media hadn't been making a big propaganda thing and one person came out wearing a bright pink mask, or I saw one with some sparkly things on it, and they explained, well, I'm wearing it because I don't want my grandmother to die. I mean, it's total insanity. Or I don't like the idea of breathing other people's spit. I mean, who even thinks of these things? Why would you want to think of that? I don't get it. Anyway, the signs are all there. And if you're listening to this, then I think you can pretty much understand that Krishna wants you to be thinking about what you should be doing, where you should be. And I did want, maybe my next video, because I've already gone kind of long on this one, but my husband and I had discussed our policies about allowing refugees or members of our community, because we do have a lot of facilities. So anyway, maybe in a future episode, and people are more than welcome to contact me, because we haven't really written up what our policies, but it's going to be, you know, anybody who wants to stay on our project long term, and if they've been hearing that I'm a fanatic, and that turns them off, you know, probably aren't going to fit in, because my idea is to follow exactly how Srila Prabhupada set things up. And that means, you know, ladies, we keep our heads covered. You know, no, everything's gotten kind of loose lately because it's not convenient to keep your head covered. But that was Prabhupada's standard. So, you know, that's an example. Or eating karmi food. When I was a new devotee, nobody, I mean, I remember occasionally, you know, buying a yogurt that had some flavoring in it and thinking, oh, wow, this is really deviating. And now it's the standard. And yeah, anyway, so for somebody joining the community, it needs to be people who want to be in the missionary spirit, who want to be back to the way that ISKCON was, and who are willing to be open to the concept that Prabhupada is still here with us, because he is. Anyway, that's it for now. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.